Hello and welcome to Movie Buffs, a show that covers the best action stars of all time. I'm your host, Cisco from Misfit Minded Media Reviews. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at misfit_minded and Twitter at rampage_misfit or my website at misfitminded.com.
And I'm your host, Shani B. You can find me on all the socials at It's Me, Shani B.
And today we're talking about the new documentary Sly, focused on the career of Sylvester Stallone. It recounts his iconic characters, his films, as well as, some biographical information on his personal story. Yeah, another doc about one of the more prolific action stars of the 80s. What did you think, Shani B?
This was so much more enjoyable than I was ready for it to be. I have always been very curious about Sly. He, to me, has been a kind of enigma that has so much more depth than he really ever gets credit for. And I think to compare him to Arnold in an interesting way, Arnold advocated for himself in a different type of way. And to learn of the guttural way that Sly was always advocating for himself in one way or another was really, really fun. So being able to strengthen my understanding of this person I know so well for the characters he can play was really, really fun. And I love a sad boy any which way you give him to me, especially a big, muscly sad boy. So sweet.
This is
So,
a
so
this is a
sweet.
pro sad boy podcast for those
Oh
who
my
are not
gosh,
familiar.
yes. Yeah, yeah, if you're not into it, I'm sorry, but I'm here to celebrate the vulnerability, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I like that he is open about being in the business of hope and that he is open about not liking sad endings, wanting to be able to make his dreams come true on screen. Like, he's just such a sweet person, and I had no idea what his family of origin situation was.
Mhm.
I know he does the reality show with his family now that's, like, a
Yeah.
little bit more light and fun, but to learn about the history and, what as a child he endured was, oh, so sad to imagine this, like, sweet little guy,
Literal sad boy.
and oh my
Literal sad
gosh.
boy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like, next level, devastating to imagine, but then to hear what he was able to do, to take that experience and turn it into something else, just like his contemporary Arnold. Like,
Mhm.
it's amazing that both of these men are able to lift themselves from the circumstances that they are handed, and then instead of tear each other down, they, like, build each other up, they challenge each other to be better, they are both who they are as individuals, but also better because of each other. And I like how in this story, we didn't have to really, I guess, compare them until it came time to acknowledge their shared, I guess, like, evolution, right? That
Yeah.
their shared history of being like the co-kings of action or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I like
Yeah.
when Arnold is in this movie as one of the talking heads, like, one of the there's not a lot, but, there's a few that they keep cutting back to, and I just like that for all of Arnold's, interview scenes, he's just, like, you can tell he's, like, just got off a pump, like, he's, like, really energized and, like,
He's
list
at the gym.
yeah, he's literally at the gym, and so, like, when they're talking about it, he's like, Sly would have this much opening, and I had to have the next opening bigger, and then it's just like
Right. But like
it's like
understanding,
yeah,
mhm.
he has a
Oh
knife, I
man.
have to have a bigger knife.
But, so such a good, example of how when there's, like, the right kind of competition in Hollywood, when there is this understanding that we don't just want a certain kind of movies or a certain kind of genre, but we also want a certain kind of star in certain contexts. I liked revisiting Stallone's career and being reminded of that type of thing. Like, I feel like obviously there's a lot of content of him connecting to Rocky, but to see him again reflect on it in this doc and to be able to connect to, like the writing and the pieces of, like, basically to learn more about him as an artist and, to giggle a little bit at that just because, at face value you're thinking, "What?" But then when you get close, you're like, "Yeah, like this is the reason why actors are always advocating to be treated as artists because they absolutely are.
Oh, yeah.
Even if they're molding their own body, Schwarzenegger style or their whole experience Stallone style.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that comes across pretty well that, like, he's more than just Rambo or Rocky, even though, like, they constantly come back to those and, like, those are the 2 characters he can always go back to, they say, even in Last Blood, Rocky made sure that he could still be alive,
Mhm.
he doesn't like sad endings, he says that, so, yeah.
So good.
Yeah, they kind of, like, reflect on that. I thought Quentin Tarantino being interviewed was interesting because,
Amazing.
I read his newest book, Tarantino's, that came out this year, and he has, like, a whole I don't know about chapter, but, like, section where he talks about seeing Sly in that, like, early movie in the background or whatever, and then seeing Rocky and, like
Lords of Flatbush.
yeah, and then he was, like, so, obsessed with him as a screen like, you have to imagine, like, that whole story of, like, this guy literally writing his own screenplay because nobody wanted to cast him in things, and so he just wrote his own character, and we've done, like, Creed. I don't know if we've done any Rockies, have we?
Yeah, we did Rocky IV, the remastered
Yeah,
edition,
that's
when
right,
Sly got
so,
to cut it, and we got to explore him a little bit as a director.
honestly, that, documentary that they made for that Rocky 4 is, like, on the same level as this. It's pretty fascinating. Of,
He
like
really is such a fascinating guy.
yes. Yeah, I mean, like, but just, like, seeing him and just, like, obsessing over, like, the smallest details from, like, 40 years ago, and then being like, "No, this I don't like this take, use another take," or whatever, and then, like, it's just a
I love
completely
it.
different experience when we watch the new Rocky 4 cut. It's like a very different tone.
And he is one of the best reminders that, like, an actor is not who you see on screen necessarily. Sure, they may be able to reflect the characters they play, and I think that's one of the most interesting parts of who Sly is, but also he is so much more. He's so clever and strange and emotional and enigmatic or something.
Mhm.
I also felt like I was expecting something more like in the Schwarzenegger documentary where he was, like, way more able to be like, "Yeah, I have a kind of self-awareness and an ego, and I'm feel good with that." And instead, we got this, like, person who is still looking over the details of his art 40 years later, who's, like, continuing to wanna rewrite and retool and rework because he is a tortured performance artist who improvises some of his art, which I loved
Oh,
finding out
yeah.
about.
He's like, "I
Just
always add more words than what's on the page."
I bet every single director loved
Yeah,
that about
the
him.
script supervisor was thrilled that they had to keep adding to it.
It's true, he's an auteur, he's a unique kind of auteur, but I really, really enjoyed just getting to know him more on this personal level, being present for whatever this iteration of self-reflection, it was for him, and so I'm glad we picked it, like,
Mhm.
what about you? What are your takeaways?
I mean, I'm largely with you, like, having watched, like, the Arnold one, which is just so funny that even in this year, they're still competing with
Yes.
with documentaries going over their careers and their success, like, I don't know, like, when they were made, like, but they're being released in the same year, and it's like, this is the '80s all over again, like, box office competition, and so I
Mhm.
love it. I do like that this was a film. I will say that. I don't think this needed to be a mini series like the Arnold one necessarily
Agreed.
because Arnold had that 3-act structure of, 3 different
His life.
careers,
Mhm.
bodybuilding, acting, and then, governing.
Politics, yeah.
So, yeah, so I thought that made sense for that particular story, and in this one, I like that it was just 90 minutes, get out, you're in, you're out, clean. Um,
Mhm.
the wraparound story was a little weird, like, I don't understand like, he's, like, in the middle of moving somewhere, and
He's so bohemian,
it's
dude.
just
He's
so
so bohemian.
it's just so weird. He's, like, in this empty house, and I'm like, "Where's his family?" Like, he's acting like he's moving, like, to seclusion or something, or,
I
so you never see his wife or she's never interviewed, and, like, he's just by himself the whole time in this empty house, and there's all these, like, statues of himself, like,
being
from
wrapped up.
from all of his own movies and being so I get the symbology of it, if that's the word,
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
yeah, but it was just, like, they coulda just explained it better because 'cause I'm like, "Where is he moving to? Like, what is" like, it was just
He was building his own tomb, it seemed. He was taking all the pieces to the pyramid. But I agree, like, it feels like he was hitting a wall where he always wants to be growing. The theme I feel like that I took away from this was like, men like him and Arnold, they had really tough childhoods, so they don't like to slow down. They don't like to sit around and do nothing. They want activity, they want stimulation, they want something exciting. And I do feel like particularly in Sly's case, he's a bohemian dude who needs to like feel like his art is also being stimulated and also being challenged.
mhm,
And so I feel like he seeks out discomfort, and that was an interesting part of this that I didn't see coming too, was like I think he's like moving because he just wants to force himself to feel excited about something, and he's won everything.
yeah.
What else
I
can he
just love
do?
though, like, I, like, preferred the Arnold one where he's just, like, he just living in his house by himself with his donkeys, like
Totally
like,
relaxed.
yeah, just, like, there was no, like, transit but it almost felt like Stallone's, like you could tell, like, that was a note, like, "I gotta be doing
He's a
something.
tortured artist.
I can't just be sitting on my couch. I gotta, like, let's move some furniture or something."
Can't do it. That's right. That's right.
Um,
Yeah, I would be curious to yeah, to see, I guess, like, what yeah, like, I'd love to have watched them have a conversation. If somebody could be like, "Hey, you both had your docs out. Can Netflix get these guys together to talk
ooh,
about
Netflix,
reflecting on their lives?"
Netflix.
That would be so interesting
We'd be down
because it
to do the
is
Q&A,
yeah.
Netflix, come on.
Let's go, please. But it is interesting. It feels like Arnold was, trying to escape his childhood for different reasons, and it's so interesting to see how Sly really took the pain of his childhood and put it into his work as an actor and an artist and a writer, and that's not exactly what Arnold did. I feel like that's why Arnold was more successful in comedies, and it was really interesting to have Sly, like, explore the time in his career that he tried to do comedies, that he tried to do something that's a different kind of authentic, that's exists in a different kind of groundedness, and I haven't seen any of those
I
movies, but
haven't
I'm
either.
definitely curious. Okay, I was gonna say, have you seen any of the comedy
Mm.
movies that they were talking about?
I mean, they've always been talked about as, like, disasters, so it's not like actively
Cute.
sought them out, like, "I gotta see this," it's like, they're all bombs. They're all, like, huge
Okay.
bombs, and
I love a good bomb. I'll watch a bomb.
yeah, like, I know the one with Dolly Parton they did on, How Did This Get Made? So,
Oh
but
my
I've
gosh.
still never seen that, but, yeah.
Now I wanna see that. I have to see that.
Um,
That's good.
I do I think this kinda suffers from the same problem that Arnold's one did too, though, where it's like, you can tell I don't know if they, like, produced it, but you can tell that they definitely have, like, final cut about, like, what information
Yes.
gets doled out and, like, how emotional they wanna get. Because there would be times when it would be like, he'd be reflecting about his dad or something, like something that was like super interesting, and then they would like move on to the next segment. I was like, wait, 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 like
Mhm.
stay there. Like I want to know like what happened with your dad. Like all they said was like he was on his deathbed, and then like Sly makes like a joke and laughs it off, and then they move on, and I'm like, no, like so what ended up happening? Like, did you guys make peace before he went? Like it
Mhm.
was, yeah, I don't know, it was tough. But
I
again, I
was
yeah.
curious about why certain things were left out. Like, to your point, I was like, "Why are you not talking more about his family life?" Like, he
Yeah,
it's a
he's
point of
very
pride that he
private about
be a
that,
good
but they have a
Yeah,
reality show, so it's like, I don't but I mean,
I don't
that has to be
understand.
some artifice on that too, I guess, but, still, it's
It's true. It's true. I feel like you're correct that these guys, they still have Final Cut. They're still doing what they can, I think, to protect themselves and protect I guess us from vulnerability or something.
Mhm.
But as they get older and as the documentary questions get better and they ask themselves these questions more and more, I do feel like little bits of authenticity and real vulnerability sneak out and snuck out in both.
Mhm.
And those moments made me feel happy, that like Sly is a guy who always tried his hardest, even when he was winning.
Yeah, it was just I don't know, like I said, it just I don't know if it was like like what why it was edited that way or if certain things were cut out, but it would there would just be certain things where, they it's like an offhand line about like his speech or whatever about the nerves and then like they move on and I'm like, okay, what was you were born with
Yeah, tell me
that or
more.
like was that like later
Mhm.
in life? Like I think he was born with it is what I think.
Yeah, like an accident during birth
Yeah.
led to it, and
But
yeah,
again,
his mom sounded like a real
they don't
rough time.
explain it. They just like they'll just like offhand like, "Yeah, and then like my mom gave birth and that was it." And then yeah,
Yeah,
years
then she
later.
was off
Yeah.
doing this. It's true, like, only small snippets, which was interesting because I wanna know those snippets, but to your point,
He
like,
should write a
why
book. He should
snippets?
write a book or something. If he hasn't already because I feel like there's a lot of those
He
holes
loves to
that
write.
could be filled in a little more. I would like to at least because I mean, especially the dad stuff. I thought the dad stuff was like so fascinating. Like
Heartbreaking,
it was
dude.
heartbreaking, like, the all the way up until, like, where, he was a polo star and he quit because his dad was such a hard ass on him, and then
Embarrassing.
when he was 40, he tried to do it again, and his dad took a cheap shot at him, and I'm just like, "Dude, this is fucked." Like, this is so fucked.
Mhm. Really insane. Really, really insane, and, like, totally trying to glom on and
Yeah.
just he
Oh, the
has
competition with him too, where he wrote, like, his version of Rocky and was, like, shopping it around Hollywood, like,
despicable, dude.
that's disgusting, like, yeah, that's
He has had a kind of, like, celebrity experience that usually a celebrity has, like, one of, like, they're like, "Oh,
oh, yeah.
notoriously, like, a hard family," like, you know I mean, more and more I feel like because of, social media and stuff like that, celebrities, like, if they had a shitty family, the press is also gonna ruin their life too, like,
He's
they're
been
gonna get
married I
it
think
more
he's
than
been
one
married a
way now.
couple times, right? Like, so, again, they don't mention that.
I Yeah, I was gonna say, I wouldn't be clear, I just recall that he has a child who passed away that he very softly talked about and didn't
Again,
give any
don't
information
mention I
about.
had to look it up, because I assumed wrongly suicide because he was so
He
young.
was
Because
pretty young, yeah.
but I looked it up and it said, heart failure. So but
That
he was
sucks.
only 36. It's, like,
Whoops.
so young, like, and but, like and there that was stuff too where I felt like they could've maybe the son didn't have as many interviews or whatever, but I was like there was that thread of, like, the son, like,
Yeah, like
Rocky doing all the talking and his son just, like, in the interviews, and I was like, "I wanna know what the son thinks about all this because, Rocky 5 was a huge bomb. I had forgotten that that was his actual son in the
yeah.
movie. I mean, I don't go back and revisit Rocky 5, I'll be honest. It's a bad movie. I'm sorry. Uh,
Yeah, win 'em all.
but, yeah, like, I just like him reflecting on that, and I did like how, they go into, all the different Rocky entries, like, we love Rocky on this podcast, obviously
Yeah.
as a franchise. I think I've said that before. It's one of the more outside of Rocky 5, I think it's a really consistent, solid franchise. Like
Mhm.
every entry, there's something for you. And, Sly obsessing about like, people look down on sequels, but I actually like them because they give you more story to work with. Um, which some of them I'm kinda like, what story was there in Rocky 4, honestly? Rocky 4 is literally just montages. I'm like, I don't know what story that
Maybe
you
the
guys had.
story there is sometimes life slows down and you should just relax and
Life is
enjoy
like a
it.
montage, just
Oof. I
Um,
think he sees his life as a montage when he
he
was,
does
like,
say that though, actually.
explaining.
Remember when he was doing the train thing? He was just like,
Yes.
"Life is just
Oof.
you're just seeing these moments just go by," like God, I can't believe we ran that back full circle. That's hilarious.
He's the best.
But yeah, like in that he used Rocky as a character to express his frustrations of his own life. I thought was like,
Mhm.
and I kind of knew that already, but just to hear him like tell it himself, um, in
Have
interviews,
awareness.
yeah, like that Rocky one was like, the underdog, no one believed in him, and he just wanted to go the distance, and blah blah blah, and how I didn't know like the actors that ended up casting there were like all the second choices, which actually is again the Rocky story. The second choice, ended up being the best people for the part.
That's right.
uh
Yes.
Talia Shire, was interviewed in this, which was pretty cool.
Super cute.
To have Adrian come back and, say like how empowering of a female character that was that he came up with, and, directing the sequel and things like that. And so, yeah, I mean, obviously that was probably like my favorite stuff was the Rocky franchise. And they spend like a pretty big chunk of the movie talking about that, which is like, rightly so. So
It's
yeah,
true, yeah. I think that's what was so fascinating just about, like, his career and him as, like, an artist, not just, like, a celebrity and star, is that, like, Rocky is an art form, it's a performance art form where he's improvising alongside a character as himself and as the character, and I do feel like that's why the juxtaposition of Rocky and Rambo is so valuable because like Rambo's completely abandoned and devalued,
yeah.
and Rocky's entire community is always lifting him up. So there's something about how each of these characters helps him explore the very true experiences that he has had in life, like in the first half of his life, really being forgotten and not having the right skills
They
to
don't
get what he
mention
wants
they
or
don't
not being
mention the
given the
porno he was in
opportunities.
too when he was first starting out, which I was, like, kind of waiting for that. Like, he has, like, again, another offhand line where he's just like, "While I was getting cast through these background parts where you have to be naked," and I was like, "Okay, keep going. You got the
Yep.
name Italian Stallion somewhere."
That's right. Push, push, push. So
Um,
goofy too.
but yeah, I mean, the best artists do that, right? Like, put their own life on, like, I just watched David Fincher's new movie. I don't know if you've seen it yet on Netflix.
I'm about to watch it tonight. I have it
Uh,
on the list.
can't wait to hear what you think about it. But
Yes.
obviously, no spoilers, but like that's about a hitman that is like obsessive and a perfectionist and spends all of his time making sure he gets things right. And it's like, yeah, David Fincher, there's a reason why he decided to direct that. Like
Mhm,
it just
mhm.
makes total sense. And so like, yeah, Rocky or Sylvester Stallone. See, like I'm getting the names mixed up. That's how synonymous they are. But yeah, like Sly counting on Rocky. Like I like how they were talking about even through different characters. Like in Rocky 2, I think when um Apollo's ripping up like the negative critics or
Yes.
whatever. Like the fan
Mhm.
mail. He was getting the hate mail or whatever. And I think Tarantino was like, you imagine that was like Sly, because he would get really combative and like angry at critics who were like
Well,
wanting to fight them, like for giving him a negative review.
he really did. He
which
truly did do that.
which like it's like you don't can't take it personal, Sly. Like this,
Well, but
it's
that's
just,
exactly it,
but he
is that, like,
does.
Sly's professional career was teaching him how to be okay being seen,
Mm,
right? Like, not he wanted to be seen, he wanted to feel loved, that's what his childhood deprived him of, and he had to learn in entertainment that, like, they wanna love your character, they don't wanna love you as a
right.
person. You have
Yeah.
to earn that, you have to force that sometimes.
hmm Yeah, and like, like I like to again, they don't dwell on this, but when it gets to the comedies part, he's just, you know, farce is a dead genre. He doesn't he doesn't blame
What a
himself at
bastard for
all.
saying that, dude. That's not fucking cool. Farce is fucking great.
But that's like again not true, but also Sly not admitting that he's just not good at comedy. Like he's just not. And so but he can't admit that because he's Sly Stallone and he can admit his faults, but um Schwarzenegger has been doing a bunch of interviews and he straight up says that he said that on Conan that Sly was not good at comedy, and it's he's not. He just isn't. He just when you have
Exactly.
like that kind of speech and it's limiting, it's like kind of limiting to you and that drawl and that low voice, and kind of slower speech pattern. It's like it's hard to be, comedy's fast and you got to be,
Well,
you
and
know,
being farce is totally about being a caricature, and the
yeah,
whole thing is that, like, Sly is always fighting to not be treated like a caricature,
right.
so to move into a genre where he's supposed to embody a caricature, I feel like makes perfect sense that it was, like, really uncomfortable and threatening, and it, like, does make me think of how, like, musicians often get to cast themselves, often get to see themselves in the roles they wanna play, and Sly is a lot like that where, he's gotta play he has to see himself and make sense in a role. I don't know that he loves to play characters he didn't write.
Hmm. Yeah, I imagine probably not. And
Mm.
that, but I mean, he talks about too, like that when the comedies bombed, that he finally realized that like I'm just gonna stick to this one thing, and I'm not
Did I
gonna,
know?
he tries to apply it to all acting, like you can't do different things or whatever, different parts. I'm like, that's kind of what acting is.
That is the job,
But in his case, he wasn't gonna do that. And so, he was just the action guy. But I did think that was again another interesting part they don't really dwell on, but that, they talked about like what he regretted the most, and he said it was the comedies and not getting that time back with his family. Um, so, that was tough, but you take those swings. And I mean, when he was talking about Expendables though, and like how his body is never gonna be the same, I was like, I think that might be like my biggest regret if that was someone asked me. I know the Expendables movies make money, like box office receipts, but like
fun.
Jesus Christ, dude. He's like, yeah, my neck, my spine, the surgeries, my shoulder. I'm like, yeah, that seemed
That's
like
rough.
something I would regret probably, because especially for like when he said the first Expendables, I was like, "Oh, man, that was such a bad movie to break your body over." It's not like you
Ye
can't even say, like, "This was my masterpiece, I put everything," like Apocalypse Now or something, like, it
but
was
it is kind of that though, like, he is truly a performance artist. He needs to break his body to get the shot, he's one of those, like, kinds of, like, method actors or something, except he can't the method does not work outside of the genre that he's found
The
and come up
method
with.
is the madness.
It is, but he's an important kind of shepherd, he
Yeah.
does give a voice to a type of guy that would maybe otherwise just be, like, a really dangerous incel, and
Mm.
instead, he's
Oh,
like,
yeah,
"This guy
Expendables.
has a heart." Like, this guy is able to like, you might be able to see him and relate to him, and maybe he doesn't have to be lost in one way or the other.
I didn't get to go on the Expendables episode, so let me just air out some of these grievances here because
Air them now, yes.
I'm not a fan of that franchise. I think they get
Okay,
better. I think like every entry, like progressively, like 2 and 3, I thought like it almost seemed like, okay, we get the formula now. But it,
that's right.
it took them a while, I think, and like some of those you're talking about incels, like that was some of my issues with it, where it was like I think it might have
Those
been
dudes.
the first one where it wasn't Dolph Lundgren. Oh, it was Jason Statham, and he's like having girl problems, and he's like, "You ever had anything happen like this to you?" And Sly's just like, "Hey man, come on, we're only friends here." And I'm like, "What?" I just started laughing. He's like, "Oh no," he goes, "You're really testing the limits of our friendship." And I was like, "That's what friends do. We talk with
Yeah,
each
they
other."
talk about stuff. It's true. Oh, man, it's
I
true. The
laughed so
Expendables
hard at that part.
yeah, it is one that, like, starts in the past in, like, his illusions of what this franchise or these franchises were, and then they progress into what they should be in the future, but that first one is
And
egregious.
that Mickey Rourke monologue that he has in the first one.
Mickey Rourke's entire character, dude,
Just yeah, I don't know. I
epic.
haven't seen the 4th one, but, that was the one, at least, like, in the 2nd and 3rd one, the villains got better,
Mhm.
like, and it seemed like they were having, like, a little more fun at least. Because the first
It's
one is
true.
so serious. That's the other thing too, where it's just like, dude, like, if you're gonna do a Rambo, like, make it this, like, surreal, like, bombs everywhere, like, just because reality's out the window. You had the first one is the realistic one, like, First Blood is the
That's right.
post-Vietnam War movie, um,
Yeah, you did the drama first, now
Yeah.
you're free to have fun.
Yeah, now you can be shirtless and just shoot machine guns, like
And you don't have to do any drama in The Expendables. It's a
Yeah,
total, comedy. Like, it's a
yeah,
comedy he thought of, he just didn't realize it was a comedy yet.
mhm. Yeah, and, exactly. It's like there are some, funny moments in it. Like, I even like in 3, like Expendables 3, where, like, they have, like, the young crew versus,
Yes.
like, he tries to recruit this young crew because the old guys, like, he's like, "I care about you guys, and I'm not risking your guys' life, but these youngies, I have no relation to them."
Classic.
So, but then, obviously the old crew comes back and everything. So I like, I mean, the story that he tells about the inspiration for Expendables is pretty funny in this documentary where he was like, I was at a rock and roll hall of fame and seeing these like old guys and these
I
tight,
just love
with
how
tight pants.
candid
I
he is
know.
by accident, even though he's also so
Yeah, he's
curated.
telling this with a serious face, like, he's dead serious, he's not laughing at
Yes.
it, he's just like, "Yeah, man, these guys, at their age, and they're jamming out," and I'm like, "Why can't I do that?" Like, we should do that.
It's pretty good. I mean, I will take it. I
Yeah,
love the
and he
personal
was dead
reflection that
on.
comes in unexpected places.
He was dead on when he said, though, because again, even though I don't like the franchise overall, he said people will see it out of morbid curiosity, and that is 100%. That's why I watched it because I was just like,
Same.
I mean, I had it for years, but when we finally got the opportunity to do it, I was just like, you know what? Let's do it. Let's watch it.
Yep.
Like
Mhm.
got Sly in it. It's got all these people in it. Maybe something good will. There's some good moments in there. JCVD in the sequel playing the daddy and Chuck Norris showing up.
Well, I mean, it's an amazing kind of it's just an amazing piece too, because each stage of his career is encapsulated by one of these characters. Even though there's Rambo Rocky overlap, they represent different stages of his life and the feelings he felt at different stages of his life. And that's why The Expendables is genius, because he is at the top of the mountain. So, of course, he gets to play in an absurd dreamland where he can make anything he wants happen. And of course, he gets to reflect and look back and feel wise.
Mhm,
I love that he gets to play the guy who is an expert because if he looks across his life, he technically earned it.
mhm. No, like, I can't imagine, like, they talk about, like, him winning, like, Best Picture is your first movie winning Best Picture, like, I can't even
Oh,
fathom the amount of pressure because, like, I mean, anyone who does win Best Picture, like, or wins an Oscar, there is, like, that pressure after that, and, like, that's, like, a thing where they're next.
usually not good.
Halle Berry taking Catwoman after she won her Oscar, you know what I mean? Like, that's
Poor Halle Berry, dude.
those are the
Most
type of
women
things
getting,
that
like, a
happen.
divorce right after they win an Oscar, which you're like, "What the hell, dude?
Yeah.
Why does everybody fall?" But it was cool to hear Sly be like, "Once you're there, then, like, what happens next?"
Yeah, and I mean, like, even, I like, he talked about Rocky 6 being one of the proudest moments of his career, which, like, I thought that was interesting too because I would never would have picked that movie necessarily, and it's not a bad movie, but I just think, like, you can tell that that was, like, really important to him because he was, he had said he was talking about he didn't wanna say it, but, like, 5 being so bad that it
Mhm.
left a bad taste in his mouth
It couldn't be
for audiences and for
the
him
end.
as the
That's
creator,
right.
and so he's like, "I have to, put it back," and I like there's certain moments where, like, he's watching some of the specific scenes and commenting on them, which I thought was a nice touch, so, like,
Yeah.
in the Rocky 6 one, he has that it's probably the most famous scene in it, where he has that monologue about like, nothing hits harder than life. Not
Yes.
about how hard you hit, it's about how hard you get hit and keep moving
Get
forward.
back up.
Yeah, that whole monologue and um yeah, I mean and like that movie specifically is about his son, like coming to terms with his son. So I think
Mhm.
there's some, autobiographical stuff going on there that
Well, that's it.
yeah.
That's exactly it, is that, like, he can always come back to Rocky, he can always come back to Rambo because these characters are eternal. They don't just have one story, their whole life is a piece of art, and he's an interesting kind of painter who allows himself to grow and change, but also there are cornerstones, just like all auteurs, that are always gonna be there if he is the artist, And I feel like that is unique to him outside of Arnold because I feel like Arnold is just like a star. He's a celebrity. He is more like a planet, and Sly is like the moon that pulls people closer with its mood.
Yeah, and I mean,
You know, like
I always say I pick Arnold as my guy, but that doesn't mean like, there's things that Sly has that Arnold doesn't have. Like that like
yeah, they are different.
that brooding like inner, turmoil thing. Arnold doesn't necessarily read that that often. And so like it was a bummer when they talked about Copland, which I think is a really underrated, like
So good.
good movie by James
Mhm.
Gray, and like he is so good in it. But, like, I
Yes.
felt like that was, like, a turning point where he was like, "I'm gonna try this drama thing. Like, I'm gonna put on this weight. I'm gonna play this, like, you know, partly deaf character,
Yeah, who's
and
like a sad guy.
yeah, who's like a sad sap and see, like, what happens." And it bombed and, like, didn't do very well, even though, like, critically it's, like, well
It
received,
was
but
huge where I grew up because 'cause I'm from New Jersey originally,
oh,
so
okay.
it was
Big
fucking
New Jersey
massive.
big New Jersey movie for sure. But I like when they talk about the Bobby De Niro scene. That was pretty cool. So again, another scene where he's like, I've been waiting 20 years for this scene to have the scene with Bobby De Niro, and that he was like pushing him to to go
Well, to
harder.
yeah, to, like, see the, like, tiny little moment of being starstruck, to, like, feel the culmination of this moment and to want more from it, so he's gonna push De Niro to get more from it, like,
And he
so
he might have
wild.
pushed him a little too far because that line delivery is so hilarious, but it's also one of the famous lines of that movie of the "You blew
He
it!"
did. It is. Like, there's something about how it's true, like, Sly is a collaborative kind of artist, and he needs to either collaborate with himself as the writer and speak his lines, but I do feel like that's another reason why Tarantino aligns with him, because
Mhm.
I think that Tarantino and Sly are actually, like, really similar kinds of artists who love
Oh,
film, who
Tarantino
love
talks about that in the
storytelling.
book, like, he's directly inspired by his career, like, that's the career he wanted,
So good. That's
basically.
so awesome.
I know. I would what would be fascinating is if he cast Stallone in something. I know he said he's only doing one more movie, but, like, that's the type of, like, career redefinition that Stallone could use and that Tarantino could definitely write him apart. That's
I I totally agree.
worthy of him, yeah.
I wish he would do more dramatic work. I feel like, Copland
He
is
has
so
that in
good.
him, and he's old enough now where it's like, I feel like that's just the li but it's almost like a pride thing, I think, where it's like and
Yeah.
he has that line there too where he's like, "Maybe this is, like, the first starting point of obsolescence," or whatever, and I was like, "Damn,
Yes,
dude." I
the
was
big words. The
like
big words coming through.
yeah, I was like, "First of all, good word drop." Uh, second of all, I'm like, "Dude, no, you're still a good dramatic actor, like, you could do parts that you don't have to shoot a gun in it and or, like, be physical. Like, that part of your life could be over, but, I mean, I can imagine that might be hard for some of those guys
Yeah.
to come to grips with, yeah.
It makes him feel safe. It's the stuff that made him feel the most grounded, that made him feel the most like an artist. And I am curious, like it's insane that he's done 4 Expendables movies. It's insane that
That is
again he has
crazy.
another franchise this deep,
Just this
like
year,
is wild.
still coming out, yeah. And, like, the reality show, like, it's almost like, obviously he was around before me, but it's like he's always been around. He just always pops back up and will
Mhm.
do something new that you're like, "Oh, okay,
Can't wait to see
Sly's got
whatever
another
the
one."
hell it's gonna be.
Yeah. Sly's got another one in the tank.
Seriously.
Okay, alright. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, do you feel like this was a way for him to reconnect and put himself back out there because you think he does wanna make something else or try something new? Because I guess I wondered if that's what the Arnold one was, but it didn't really feel like it. It felt like Arnold was like, "This is a celebration," and this Sly one felt much more, like it was just a reflective exercise, and at the end, like, when the credits rolled, I actually wasn't sure how to feel.
yeah, I mean, well, the Arnold one, he has a book coming out to this year,
Okay.
so I don't think that was
Okay.
any accident that
It
those
makes
2 came out back to back.
perfect sense. Okay.
And, like, about, like I think it's called, like, Self-Made Man or I don't know, some shit like that, or
Classic.
Yeah,
Very in line.
and he talks about that in the doc, like how he doesn't agree with that, um, as a descriptor of his career. Um, the Sly one, yeah, I'm with you. I didn't know how to feel exactly either. Like it was kind of a, that could be like a detriment to the movie. But I almost wonder if like going back and doing that Rocky 4 thing, like maybe like that kind of like is he started maybe reflecting more on his life and I mean, and these guys are getting up there, it's not
Yeah,
like they're not young guns anymore, so
sure aren't.
you can kind of see like he talks about one of the interviews with his son next to him, and he's like, everything I have is like going to be passed on to them. They're my legacy, that type of thing. So it almost kind of seems like maybe that more than anything that like he's just like wants to reflect on his own career. Because there's definitely like pieces that are like they don't cover, like I'm like, where was the Demolition Man? Like
Thank you.
piece.
Cliffhanger, excuse me?
Judge Dredd,
Please?
like
Yep,
he did like a whole sci-fi thing that wasn't necessarily successful either, probably, but like I mean, I still think that's like a fun detour that he took, like in the '90s, like that was
and
cool.
I do feel like he had good kinds of wide reflection on some of his much older work, but I agree. I feel like I am interested to see if he'll be able to still look back and be grateful for the interesting lessons that movies like that would give him when he is working with directors who work in another genre, who prioritize different things. That as an artist, I think those things were probably positive, but I think he does have a real relationship to the way that people receive his art rather than just trying to entertain them, maybe how Arnold would. Like, I feel like if you don't like an Arnold movie, he's like, "That's because you're stupid." And if you don't like a Sly movie, he's like, "What's your problem?"
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, it's kind of a I know exactly what you mean, and again, weird choice that he ends it the where he does. I mean, like putting on producer hat real quick. Uh,
Let's go.
I would have ended this with Creed, the Creed movies. I think he's fantastic in Creed, and that was, I mean, maybe that was hard because like he lost the Oscar. A lot of people thought that's where he was going to finally win his Oscar,
Mhm.
acting Oscar for his performance
That's
in the
right.
first Creed. But I mean, I still think that that performance is like worthy and goes along with like where he is now of like passing on the legacy to another creator and artist. Like, so that's where I would
Yes,
have ended the movie. That like, I know he wasn't on the sequels or whatever, like the
but
Creed
still.
3. But like again, like I think that's a great place to end. That his legacy is still going even though he's not in Creed 3. Like
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly, and hopefully he'll be able to find a way to internalize that appropriately, because,
Maybe he's
yeah,
still
like,
sore
while
about it.
this
Maybe we don't know. I don't know. Maybe he's still upset about
he's always exploring.
I
An
know.
artist is never satisfied with their own story, always looking to rewrite it, and I do feel like while this was not a perfect, documentary, it wasn't, scathing or particularly
Pretty
rough in any
surface
way.
level. Yeah.
Yeah, it was still entertaining enough and interesting and did give me a lot to think about being able to spend this personal time with him. So it's fun when we take a break from like elevated, heightened fantasy and play in the movies we watch and then, watch some kind of documentary that really talks about the people who delivered that entertainment to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like a good documentary
It's
about these
a
old
perfect,
stars.
like, non-committal Netflix thing that, like, you just put on 90 minutes, very breezy,
Learn a little bit.
nothing too serious or dramatic that's gonna, like, cause you to, like, cry or anything like that, but just, like, just
It feels
enough.
like a fun, movie club assignment for, like, sophomore year. They're like, "Okay, you're gonna learn about, like, action
Definitely felt like a
movies."
school project for sure, like college project for sure.
Yep.
I had the same thing. Alright, 2 questions. I got 2 questions for you. Alright.
Okay.
First question, how many, statues/figures slash figures of yourself in your house is too many, and when did Sly reach that point?
It's a good
My
question.
man's
He had
house
so many
was
busts
filled, filled to the brim, like
to the point where I'm like, "Why did you need some of these busts?"
yeah.
Like, some of
It
these, I
felt
don't know
like
why they were made.
it felt like I would what I would picture the number one Rocky fan in the world and his room would look like. Like,
Yeah,
there was stuff in there where it's like, he's
seriously.
got the hat that Rocky wears, he's got a bust of his head with his beaten up face, which was, like,
Yeah,
pretty
multiple
distracting
Rocky busts.
sometimes when he was talking, and I'm looking at his busted Rocky face as he's talking.
It was
Uh,
pretty trippy.
yeah, it was a trip. It was and the, Rambo figures and, like, bust statues, paintings. I'm like, it
He
definitely felt
really
like a
is
shrine to
surrounded by
himself.
himself.
Yes.
Yeah.
It wasn't like
Yeah.
anything else to break that up either. It was, like, fully 100% Sly stuff. Like, it was
I think
like
that was maybe also, like, another kind of takeaway
choice.
here is
Yeah.
that, yeah, I think he struggles not to be very focused on himself and his experience and his story, and that makes a lot of sense considering the kind of neglect
I
he
get it.
experienced
I'm not
as a child,
complaining.
you know?
Like, if I was
Yeah.
successful like that, I'd probably, like, build myself my own shrine too. Like, look what I did.
I mean, you might be able to relate to your shrine a little
A
better.
little
I
bit
do
more.
feel like he's fully immersed in what I feel like to him were positive reflections, you know? I feel like he is always trying to feel a sense of worthiness because of, what he experienced as a kid with his terrible parents, and I think when he looks around and he sees these glorious images of himself, he they are small reminders that, like, he is great, he is worthy, he is
Mhm.
wonderful. I just think he must need those reminders a little too much sometimes, and that is a strange kind of experience.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Oof.
it's yeah, and I was interested to,
Like,
like, get some of that family aspect of it, but it's just like, they show, like, he's got beautiful daughters, beautiful wife, like, but that's all I have to go on. Like, they're not interviewed. I'm just like, yeah, they're they're like
I think they're
supermodels.
happy.
Yeah, they're supermodels, they're smiling, cool.
I'm definitely gonna watch the show. I'm gonna try to check the show out to see if they're, like, what is different about it. But yeah, like, it was an interesting, picture of what it's like when he tells you about himself on his own terms, and it's cool to watch these guys do that.
All right, last question. And we can do this off air too, but this got me in the mood to watch some Sly for the next episode if it's cool with
Let's
you.
go. Okay, what are you thinking?
There's 2 movies we could potentially do that have anniversary.
Okay,
Um, Demolition Man or
fantastic.
Rambo 3.
Ooh,
Uh,
let's see, because I really would like to do another Rambo movie,
Thank
especially
you. Okay,
because,
that's where I was
yeah,
leading to.
I think it's gonna
Because we
have to
did a
be.
Rocky movie, and I think that's to me, that's the itch I got watching this doc. I was like, "I kinda wanna watch Rambo." Like, I wanna watch a
I
Rambo
think
now.
especially because, like, that's the one where he's on horseback a
Yeah.
bunch, and, like, now we know his serious relationship to horseback riding, so I'm really excited to rewatch number 3.
Yeah. Okay, awesome.
Nice,
Locked
okay,
in, let's do it. Rambo 3
okay.
next.
Yep, we're gonna
I
be
think it's the 35th anniversary, I believe.
let's
So,
go.
yeah. So,
Damn.
I know. We're getting up there, I'm
Nice.
telling you. Oh, when he was
Yeah,
watching
I
that
mean,
scene
these
too of
guys
that old movie with the son and the father, that was pretty
wait,
great.
which one?
It was some old movie with, like, Anthony Hopkins. It was like a young Anthony Hopkins, and, it was like
And,
the dad was yelling at Peter Weller, maybe? Peter
O'Toole was
O'Toole.
there, I think.
Yeah, and, and they're like
Oh, The Lion in Winter, it was The
yeah,
Lion in Winter.
and the
See, like, Sly's out here selecting Shakespeare plays to be like, "I understand this character in this
exactly,
Shakespeare."
and he's like, "I relate to this so hard," and it's like, "Damn," like, "You need to make this movie, bro.
Yeah,
Write this movie." Like, it seems
right?
like you have these unresolved feelings, like dramatic
I feel
feelings.
there's
It's like
more.
I want to. I That's to me as a fan of Sly, and maybe we come off as too Sylvester or Schwarzenegger biased on this pod, but like that's just I just want the best for him. Like I just want
Yeah.
you know what I mean. So that's what I would like to see. And I feel like Arnold definitely like was smartly like at the end of his career was like I'm not doing this action shit anymore. Maybe I'll do Terminator. That's gonna be like mostly CGI anyway. Like he doesn't
Yeah.
have to do.
Yeah,
He's not
exactly.
breaking his body basically. Uh,
He's got limits.
and some of those Terminator movies are actually pretty good. Some of those sequels, like the last one when Linda Hamilton came back was pretty decent actually.
Let's go.
Yeah.
She snuck in.
So yeah.
Mhm.
So I mean, that's all I want for Sly, and hopefully, when we get to Rambo 3, it's a fun revisit, and
Mm.
we get to brag about Sly more than
Yeah.
we did today. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. I love him. I love all these guys. I always have, and learning more about them just makes me love them even more. So definitely looking forward to that rewatch. And yeah, glad we picked this one.
me too.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, anything else before we wrap up?
No, it's on Netflix right now. Check it out, definitely, and then listen to this, and then check it out. Whatever you want to do.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. All right, cool. I think that wraps it up for us. Let's get the plugs in and remind the people where to find us. So you never miss a minute of the action. Follow the show at We Stay Buff on Instagram and Facebook. Subscribe to The Buffs on YouTube and Twitch. And follow me personally at It's Me, Shani B, on all those platforms as well.
All right, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you have time, please leave a positive review. It helps. 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars. Follow me on Twitter at rampage_misfit, and my movie page is at misfit_minded on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I'm on a full David Fincher binge right now, so
Let's go.
follow me on Letterboxd too if you want to follow that journey. It's been fun. Almost got my full rankings up of his filmography, so
Let's go.
that'll be fun. I think I just have to rewatch Mank, and we'll see where that falls on the
Okay.
rewatch. So, and then my website at misfitminded.com. So, thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next time for another edition of Movie Buffs. Stay buff. Stay buff, Adrian. What do you mean?